think I'm still going to say good morning. It's not afternoon yet. And oops.
I just want to make sure
It does. Everything works. Outstanding. First, congratulations, you are here. I think you all woke up the same way I did, thinking, well, it didn't snow, but it's pretty darn frosty out there. So I congratulate you for coming out. And for those of you that are on Zoom, I congratulate you for tuning in. Here we are. So we're talking about backyard composting, which quite frankly is not seasonal. Do it all the time. So whether it's cold or beautifully summer heat, it doesn't really matter. It changes things a little, but you can do it. You don't have to wait to do it. What is it? Composting is basically the process that converts organic material into a soil amendment and is through natural decomposition. So it's a natural process of recycling. Garbage, dirt, put it together, and you're going to come out with soil. Okay, you can compost, like it says, food scraps from the kitchen or leaves and woody things from the yard. Things that are there. You don't have to go buy it. You don't have to look hard to get it. It's going to be there. Okay, why are we doing it? Because it's recycling. We're getting rid of food waste. Got to go somewhere. Yard waste, quite frankly, it's got to go somewhere. And so that decreases the landfill. Okay, it also decreases the greenhouse gases. So depending on what you're hearing, what you're knowing, and how dedicated, and if you're an advocate, every little bit helps. And this is helping. It does save money. So maybe that's where we're coming from. It'll save money because you're not buying the products that are advertised to help your garden grow. And it does improve your garden soil. There it is. There's many ways to compost. I'm talking about hot composting and cold composting. And what's the difference? One is labor intensive and one is a little on the lazy side. They both work. So hot composting optimizes microbial activity within the compost bin or pile, resulting in a finished compost in a shorter period of time. That's going to be your difference. One is fast, one is slow. The basics for both of them are going to be choose your container. Where does it go? Is it a bin? And how big is it? Very important. That's the very beginning. Where am I going to put it? What does it matter? It actually matters a lot. The ingredients matter a lot. What I have up here, which are, whoops, get it back on camera. What you need is a mixture. And I have things to demonstrate. I'll give you a list. That is important for all the composting. Whatever style you pick, however you do it, later on, how you've improvised and changed, the very basic is what are the ingredients? And it's going to be a ratio of 1 to 3. More of one thing than the other. Okay, so it's a balance of nitrogen and carbon, and I will give you a list. After you put your ingredients together, and here's where the energy piece comes, you need to turn it. You need to move it, okay? And you need a little moisture in there. So this moist stuff has to move. And the reason is important. If you think of the reason, it kind of makes sense, and then you can improvise however you're doing it. Because it's microbial action, bacteria are eating things and moving. They are doubling in size and growing. They're eating and growing and pooping. That's what the microbes do. And it's fungi, it's bacteria, it's all kinds of, it's another world down there. Okay, now when they work, they are excited and stimulated when they're warm. They'll still work, but they really are excited when they're warm. and the warmth attracts them. So they want to go where the warm is, which is the middle of the pile. So your middle of the pile is the hot spot. The edges all around it are cooler. So they're going to the middle. If it's too hot, that's not so great. So you want it just perfect. So what happens is I come along and move it. So I go and I fluff it, I turn it, I rearrange it. So the outside is warm, the inside is okay. Well, the inside gets warmer quicker, so in they move. So then the middle gets hotter, and then I come along and I move it, start over and go in the middle and get warmer and warmer, and next thing I know, I move it. So the faster and the more consistently I move it, the more it breaks down, because the middle is where they're eating and pooping. And so you move it so that, and when they go in, guess what? There's more to eat. So it just accelerates itself. Now the middle, if you look at, say, a rectangle box, the middle is the center, okay, but it's also horizontally, it's in the middle of it all. So the bottom is cool, the top is cool, the edges are cool. The only hot spot is right in the middle. So when you go to move, just don't stir the middle. You got to turn it, bring it from the below and bring it around and kind of move it around. There you go. It mentions here to maintain the temperature. And the temperature is the sun. Well, it's not always there. And maybe you're in the shade. Or maybe the sun is like really there. You're in the middle of the yard and it's hot, too hot. So we've got to maintain that temperature to be whatever they like to be. And you'll figure it out because you'll see the results. You maintain the temperature by putting a tarp, making shade, leaving it in the sun for a while, or literally moving it. Okay, you just figure out how to, and if you can't maintain it, guess what? You're going to end up with cold compost, which actually works, just takes a little longer. So here's the cold. Less attention. It's like sort of, how do they say that? Set it and forget it. That's the term. Yes. Oh, there you go. So you kind of set it up and essentially leave it alone. And every once in a while you think about it and you give it a turn. The less you turn, the longer it takes. I mean, it could take 2 years. It could take 5 years. It depends. Or it could take 3 months. Depends on how much you want to put into it. Okay, let's start out with the bin, the size. I said that was important. The size of your compost bin is crucial. Don't ask me who decided 3 feet by 3 feet, but scientifically, that's the size you want. If it's much larger, I think somebody decided because it's hard to turn it when it's bigger. And the 3 feet is kind of your arm size, your rake size. I kind of think that's how it evolved. So 3 by 3 is it. If it's much smaller, it doesn't get as hot in the middle. So that's what's determining it. So that's inside needs a certain kind of space to expand and not be too cold. So it turns out to be 3 by 3. Turns out that's a barrel in a lot of cases. These are some pictures of it, and I've got a picture which you may not see, that little white thing on the side. It's a little compost pail. And what I've written on it, it says it's a small container that's cute, but it does not compost. It's a collection bin. And you've seen them advertised. They are nice. They're sitting on your kitchen counter. They're somewhere in your house. They are attractive, and they maybe are sealed. They don't smell very much. But they're not making compost. They're a collector. That's my house, side of my house. Nobody's supposed to really look at it that much. There is my bin, and it's a container 3 by 3. It's a barrel, and it turns. And I really got this because it was an issue with what I call the predators, the rodents and the birds. Okay, so it's contained, and I can turn it. Okay, on the corner, you're going to see some black bins. and that's my storage. So they go in the turning barrel until I look at it and say, oh my gosh. I mean, I get very excited. It's like giving birth. There it is. It's dirt, it's soil, it's black, it smells good. I love it. And then I get it out and I do sift it. This is a small version of my sifter, which is very small. I have one that's larger, fits over my wheelbarrow, and I put whatever I'm taking out of the bin into here, shake it through, and the leftover stuff, which tends to be carrots and celery bottoms and things like that, I set aside and throw them back in. And eventually they do break down. So I'm just taking out the stuff that fits through, which is fluffy, loamy, nice stuff. And so that goes in the barrels. Now, some little chunks will go through. I'll see a few things, which is great because the barrels are continuing to compost. And there they are. I do have holes in the bottom. I don't know where they came from, but it's full of worms. They came up, they figured it out, they smelled it, they came through, and I have worms. Okay, eventually I put in some wiggle worms, which you're going to hear about later, just to top it off. But the worms are aerating, they're making casts, they're in there, they're happy as they could be, it's continuing to compost. And like this morning, I actually brought some compost out, and I thought, oh, I wonder if it's frozen. Sure enough, the top was frozen, it was kind of crusty. And I went in deeper and I thought, oh my gosh, it's warm. There it was. So we got some compost here and a few worms, but they're in the bottom of the bin. So that's it. I've got 3. The first one. The second one is later. So that I have them. The first one is older. They're by age, and that's how I use it. One of them is for my added ingredients. So when I'm looking for my 3-to-1 balance, which is coming up next, that's one of the places I'm storing my sawdust, my dry products. Here you go. What's a carbon? What's brown? What's not alive? Okay, most of my compost is not alive. It's the carbons, it's the browns, which means what? Cardboard. It's a paper type thing. So what I have here is I've got sawdust, which is kind of fun. My husband does, every once in a while, he does a little project, and I'm like right after him, don't throw that away, don't throw that away. I'm picking it up on the floor, I'm taking it out of the little holder from the saw. I am collecting sawdust. I could get it the easy way and just go down to the mill and say, can I have a pickup load of sawdust? They got plenty of it. They give it away. You've got to have a container. You've got to figure out how to get it from them. But they got it. So sawdust is wonderful. Okay, shredded paper. Obviously, it's everywhere. Later, we're going to be shredding paper manually. This is from a little shredder, which is like super easy. It's little tiny pieces, and they break down fast. So the idea is small. Okay, leaves, same stuff. These are my leaves just from last week. Still on the ground, but they are dry, and there they are. Big green leaves, we don't want them yet. We do want them dry, we want them small, we want them broken up. So there's a whole science of collecting leaves in the fall. And they are the most valuable thing. So if you have any access to leaves, pay attention to picking them up, putting them over there. Don't let them get too soggy. Let them dry out. Get the lawnmower, go over them, shred them up, jump on them, do all kinds of things, and keep them dry. We want them dry for when we put them in, just like dry paper. Eventually, they're going to be wet, but we don't want them too soggy. It's hard to work with. Eggshells, of course, we love them. Expensive these days. So if you have eggshells, here they are. I just put an eggshell in. They break up naturally, and then when I put them through the sieve, they're breaking up even more. But the eggshells are for everything. Okay? So I have a fireplace, and I have ash. The ash goes in. A little caution with the ash. It is basic. So if you have acid soil, basic is a nice balance. If you have tomatoes, basic is wonderful. Okay, if you have blueberries, maybe not so much because that's taking the acid away. But a little bit in your compost is gritty. It's like not taken in the water. It just makes a nice balance. And then there's old soil. This is old compost. This is anybody's soil that you've actually taken out the rocks if you can. Okay, we do that for a starter. So if you have nothing, then you need a little bit of bacteria. It's kind of like making a fermented product. You need the culture. So the old soil is lovely because it's got funk. It's got stuff in it. Even if it's got bugs, I don't really, not the big bugs, but the little guys, you don't really care. So here they are, old soil. My old soil is the old compost. So when I empty my compost bin, I save a little and throw it back in. And when I have larger things that I have sieved out, they go back in. So I've got bacteria to start their little brood all over again. They're going to make a lot more bacteria. At the bottom of my slide, it'll tell you do not. Now, you might think about, of course, I wouldn't do that. But a little reminder is okay. No meat. Meat is not the same product as plants that we need. Okay, so no meat, no fat. Fat stays fat. Oil stays oil. So we don't want, a little sneaks in there, but don't put a lot. The big deal with the pizza boxes, you may have read, a pizza box was like forbidden for compost. You think, really? I wonder why. It's got oil. You can see the oil stain. And okay, now the literature says a little pizza box here and there is okay. So don't worry about that. But you don't want to put the bacon grease in there. Okay, dairy. Now, you might say eggs are dairy, but not really. It's sort of that milky product. You don't want to put cream. You don't want to put milk. It doesn't go. So no dairy. Citrus is debatable. If you are in the South, where it is warm, most of the time, the citrus breaks down. It doesn't break down in our climate very easily. You put a grapefruit rind in there and you're going to end up with a grapefruit rind. Okay, so unless you really puree it, break it up, it still is organic. It'll break down, but it takes a long time. Okay, no dog, no cat waste. It has bacteria in it that are not good for us to eat when we're growing our products. So you don't want dog or cat waste. However, the waste from the chickens and the horses is another story. Okay, plastic, of course, you don't want plastic, which is surprising. I mean, you think you're doing organic, you think you're doing all the right stuff, but when you're sort of working in your compost, by golly, you see a little plastic thing in there. So try not to put it in, but it sneaks in. No metal, no wire if you can help it. Tea bag staples are okay. They don't break down, but the saying is it's like a needle in a haystack. You're never going to find it. And it's not sharp like a nail. It'll work. Okay, here we go. That's my list. On the brown side, which I call dead stuff, you need more of it. I'll just take 3 bags of this and only 1 bag of that. So your green stuff, which you think you have a lot of, is the least that you put in. Little bit of grass. If you have a lot of garbage, you're going to need a lot of the brown stuff. Okay, if you have a lot of, in my case, chicken manure. Okay, if I have a lot of chicken manure, I'm going to put a lot of the paper products in. 3 to 1. That is so important. Because you want to say, well, my stuff smells. Guess what? Too much green, not enough brown. And how do you fix the smell? You put in the brown. You don't throw away your compost. You just put more paper in, more sawdust in, more brown product. Okay, and it's that balance. Now, whether you're doing it even with the worms, you're going to find out you need to be a worm whisperer to say, what do they like and what do they not like? And you're going to find out it's a balance. They're kind of smart. They know when it's too much, too little of something. So this is going to come back to haunt you. And you're going to say, whoa, what do I have? If I had to say to somebody before today's lecture, when you think of composting, what are you composting? One thing comes to mind. What is it? For some, it's garbage. For some, it's chicken manure. For some, it's going to be grass. For some, it's going to be, I don't know, sawdust? I don't think so. It's going to be one thing is all you think of, and either you have a lot of it or you say, I can't compost, I don't have enough garbage. I eat my food, I don't have a lot left over. Well, wait a minute, you have deadheading, you have plants, you have green stuff. You've got a lot of that stuff. Okay, let's see, coffee grounds, you got it or you don't. Tea bags, you got it or you don't. They get recycled. If all you had was coffee, that's fine. But you got to add that paper and that cardboard or it's just going to look like coffee when you're done. Okay, the kitchen scraps, the grass clippings, the deadheading flowers. I am absolutely obsessive about that in the summer. And I have a little bucket and everything goes in, and if I don't pay attention to it, it actually starts breaking down in the summer because it's more than, I start throwing in a few more things as well. And then when I throw it in to my compost, I might look a week later and it's gone. So the deadheading, because they're little things. Size, I didn't mention that. The smaller, the faster it breaks down. Okay, here's an example. Let's see. One of these is my kitchen scraps. Oh, I didn't bring all my kitchen scraps. I brought my bananas. Oh my gosh, bananas. We love our bananas. If this is your typical, my husband yesterday, I have a rule in the house that you throw the top away in the garbage. I don't break down the very top because it takes too long for that to compost. If I really am not getting obsessive about it, I'll throw it in and throw it back in and throw it back in, and one day it's gone. But generally that part is taken off. Okay, then all the little, whatever, tends to be like 3 pieces that you come back with. These are already broken down, but I tear them like paper. And you just make a little skinny strip. And the more little strips, the faster it breaks down. If you put the whole banana skin in there, it'll break down, like I say, but you'll see it again. It just takes a while. So definitely make small things. Okay, here we go. Do it. Okay, you're going to make a compost pile. And you've got a space for it. You've got a little box, you've got your bin, you've got a 3x3 space. What do? You're going to add your ingredients, which is 3 browns and 1 white. Now, 3 meaning not 3 types of brown, but 3 amounts of brown. So you need quantity. It doesn't have to be a variety of stuff, but you just need more of whatever the item is, more paper, more sawdust, something. 3 to 1. The activator is old soil or old compost, but you want that bacteria starter. So you add, and I'm saying add, I don't know what, a handful, a half a bucket, just throw it in. Okay, you're gonna moisten it. You could moisten it ahead of time. When I have a lot of paper that I shred, I put it in a bucket of water, and then I come back later, pick it up, it's dripping, kind of wring it out, whatever, throw it in because that's my moisture for the bin. I'm not hosing it down, I'm not getting too scientific, but the items that I put in, if they're wet, I wet it. Coffee, very wet. So when I put coffee in there, I don't have to worry about the rest of the pile getting wet. It's gonna naturally get there because I'm turning it. But you do have to have some kind of moisture in the bunch of stuff. Then you're gonna turn it, mix it up. Guess what? I'm not gonna tell you to do it every day, but it is weekly, at the worst monthly. If you're not turning it, it's going to be a cold compost. You definitely have to turn it. Okay, the temperature control depends on where you are. Whether you're in sun, you're in the shade, you can use tarps, you could do things. I really don't need, I'm never that hot where I live. And my house, it's on the side of the house, which is shaded by the side of the house part of the day. So it kind of comes out okay. But if you're in a sunny spot, which is in a way ideal, think about whether it gets too hot. And you know it's too hot. It's supposed to be 130 degrees in the center. You can see steam. You put your hand in and you say, oh, it's so warm. That's nice. But I've never felt hot. But that would be a bad thing if it got too hot. When it looks like soil, you know it. It smells like the forest. It looks like soil, and it makes you happy. Then you've got to sift it and sort it. You could leave it alone and just let it sit longer and longer, and eventually it keeps on breaking down, and you got to keep turning it until it's like perfect. I'm impatient, and I do go from bin to bin because that's how I do it. And so in the summer, I am getting unbelievably yummy, smell good stuff. I mean, almost to the point of here comes the mailman. Come see what I got. I mean, I want to tell people it's so nice. Then I can use it. Okay, otherwise, that's in the summer. Now, what I've got in my bin right now is from September. And if you feel like looking at it, I brought some. And it's in my little red. I love these cans, by the way. And if you have it, if you know anybody that drinks coffee and they get that can, it's not always the cheapest, but save the cans. Because this one actually says garbage because it's under my kitchen sink. And this is what I put my garbage in. And I have one that's a little taller for my coffee under the kitchen sink. Absolutely does not smell. It's there, and when it's filled up, usually when I have garbage collection day, that's my time, it's every 2 weeks, then I take it and I dump it into my compost and I turn it and I walk away. So it's all done for me. This little garbage can is where I put my houseplant deadheading. If they drop their leaves, they're on the floor, I pick them up, I put them in here. It's like I recycle. So I've got silly little paper things, little napkins, whatever. They fill it up fast. I have another actual box that collects tissues, napkins, paper towels. We have a lot. I'm surprised we use so much paper products, but they're there. And if I have nothing else to do, I shred them up into little pieces or play around with it. If I wet them, they shred up anyway, and they go in the compost. At the end of all of this, you enjoy it. Obviously, I'm enjoying it the whole process. But you do what they call dress your garden, and you actually use it. What have we done? We generated soil, not dirt, soil. And we did it quickly, it's usable, and you might even come to the point where you've got too much. Like, I don't need this much, I've done it, everything's done. Well, it actually kind of disappears. It gets down, it goes into the soil that's in the earth anyway, and you get to do it again. Okay, you recycle the waste. Be careful. If you use the bin, you use the closed thing that I'm talking about. It's safe from pests. And what's a pest? A pest is a fly. A pest is little flying things that mosquitoes, and they get into it. But if it's closed, it's very, very limited. There's obviously the mice, the rodents, the raccoons, the deer, other people's dogs and cats. I mean, you're safe if you've got it covered, and that is a very big deal if you're not in a big rural setting, or it doesn't matter. You just want to keep it safe. Okay, it definitely saves you money because there's a lot of products that you could buy when it's time to start your seeds and start planting. If you dare look at the price tag, you'll say, oh, but I want to do it. Okay, here's a shortcut. You don't have to buy so very much. Here's the challenge. You've already figured that out. You've got to figure out what you're putting in and think about the ratio a little bit, keep a balance. You do have to move it. You do have to turn it. Do a little bit of work with the temperature, not too much, but a little bit. And when it's all done, you do need to sift it, sort it, figure out where you're going to put it, because you're going to get ready for another batch, and you store it. And you could store it in my bins, or you could store it in a plastic bag or box, wherever you want to put it, or actually put it in the garden. Cold composting. How is it different? I think you know by now that it's number one, outside. The other could have been in a barn, in a shed, didn't have to be outside. Okay, this one is usually outside. It's contained by the sides. You have a place to put it, against there, against there. Don't want to put it against your house because it is composting, breaking down and wet. And guess what? Breaks down the back of your wood siding. So you don't want to put it against the fence, same thing. All of a sudden the fence post got a little rotten because it composted. So you need to have some kind of sides, and they could be plastic, they could be wood that you put there just for that purpose that will need replacing over time. Could be metal, could be a lot of things. Could be a plain old pile, no sides, doesn't have to. If it's big enough, because the center is where it's going to be warm. Okay, it could be covered with a tarp, it could be open. And it doesn't have to be turned frequently, maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, but it's not going to be fast. I didn't mention anything about the pests. They will come. It depends on where you are, what you got in there. Definitely don't put meat in there. And you might want to be short on the vegetables. And what you're putting in is grass. You're putting in the deadheading. You're putting in what other kind? Coffee. Show me the pest that likes coffee. It's kind of a repellent, not too bad. So if you think about what you're putting in there, you can leave it outside because you're not attracting the pest. This is hard to read. It's on the website if you want to look at handouts, and it says nicely, quickly, everything I just told you. Okay, this tells you how to build it. Again, easily, nicely, and faster than I'm telling you, but essentially dirt, a layer of leaves, some green items, some carbon there. Then you're going to do the dirt again, and now you're going to put a layer of leaves and your green stuff. You're going to do brown and green and a little dirt, and you kind of build it. Now that you've made it all pretty, you're going to mix it up. Okay, you mix it up and you leave it in there, and you come back, maybe cover it with a screen, keep the predators out, or a tarp. And then you do it again, and you not do it again, you turn it again. And you're doing everything I just told you. So what that picture is either a bin or a box or whatever container you came up with, hopefully a 3x3. And that's how you make compost. Now, back to the cold. I can't do all that. I got a pile, I got stuff. How should I do it? Well, you do the cold, go for it. And all you have to do to make it go a little bit faster, keep it moist. In the summer, it'll dry out. So you keep it moist, sprinkle water on it, get the hose out, get it wet once in a while. Don't let it get too dry. Raise the temperature, black tarp, any kind of tarp, put it under and it gets warmed up. Leave a plastic bag on your lawn for, give it an hour. Take the bag off and you're going to see what happened underneath of you. It warmed up real fast and kind of messed up your grass. So yes, put a tarp over it. I'd say go for the greens, meaning when you put not food waste so much, but other kind of greens, as small as you can make it, because it is going to break down fast. The twigs and stuff take longer, that's the browns, but the green stuff, keep on adding it, it's going to go faster, and the browns are balancing it out, and your cold compost is actually composting. You have to mix it a little bit. I'm saying every month, that's the perfect world. But people do it when they feel like it, when the weather is good, when they want to do something, and they get a pitchfork and they just turn it over. And if you don't want to do it, you say, oh, I don't want to do that. Guess what? Start another pile. Leave it alone. And this time you're going to do another pile nearby and keep that covered with a tarp. Wet it down here and there, do a few things, but do another pile. And next thing you know, you're going to say, let's see, well, whatever happened to that first pile? And you think, oh my gosh, I've got an amount of good stuff. And then you get a shovel and you dig it out. Okay? Little reminders. But what do I do? And I did it. I got it. Now what do I do with it? Number one, it's not a fertilizer. That's hard for me to remember. It's not a fertilizer. It's an amender. It enhances. It makes it rich. Okay? Kind of like taking a vitamin would be the fertilizer, but it's not food. You know, you need a little of both. So compost is not a fertilizer, but it does add nutrients, which the fertilizer doesn't do. Okay, it adds moisture. The fertilizer really doesn't do that. The moisture means it's like a sponge and it holds the moisture. Okay, it holds it together. So when you've got good compost, you can pick it up and it doesn't make a snowball. It just stays there. You don't want to be a hard thing. And it's not like sand going through your fingers. It stays in your hand. Okay, it's got the biodiversity, which is the key thing. When we're talking about buying products to add to your soil when you're planting seeds, that's biodiversity, but it's not as rich as what you've got in your own backyard. This is what lives here. This is what works here. This is what's going to grow here. So that biodiversity you almost can't buy, and it comes from compost. Now, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to put it around my plants. So I take a handful, I take a shovelful, and I put it around my bushes. I put it around my plants. You don't want it like for the vegetables and whatever, not right on the stem, because I don't want too much moisture there to rot that new plant coming up. But you leave about an inch, 2 inches around the plant. Around my blueberries, I don't put it right up against the trunk, the stem there. I leave about 2 inches and I make a little curtain around it, which is kind of nice because then the water, when I water it, is going to be right in that little island. That moat is where the water goes. But all my little composting is there. And I'm talking 2 or 3 inches. You could sprinkle it, which is perfectly great. If you have a lot, go for it, 2 or 3 inches, because as it's watered, the good stuff is just like a liquid fertilizer. It's going down to the soil. Where it wants to go is the roots. So the water that when you water, it leaches it out. You can do this in the autumn because it's going to rain. And you've got your 2 or 3 inches everywhere. And when it rains, all those nutrients are going down where the roots are that are going to just drink it up. When you're going to learn about making tea from the worm man, but you can make tea from this. Still got some more some compost. What do I do with it? Fill a bucket, half a bucket full of compost, put in the water, go have lunch, go do some things, come back later, and the brown water that's floating on the top, just get a cup, pour it out, do what you want to do, but that is fertilizer almost. It's a liquid enhancer. It's not as powerful as the 10-10-10 fertilizer, but it's full of calcium and potassium and all the manganese, all those minerals are in there. Okay, so you want to make a tea and go ahead and pour it out. Great little book. I wish I had this years ago. Great pictures, easy to follow, good directions. Tells you how to make a little sieve to sort out your compost. Love this book. Composting for a New Generation by Michelle Baltz. Highly recommended. And after you get through the first 3 chapters, which is easy reading, which is what I'm talking about, now you're getting into fancy composting, trench composting, keyhole composting, good ideas, other ways to work around the basics that maybe didn't work out for you. So it's really quite helpful. Okay, I'm almost done because there is more to our whole morning, and that's about worms, which is coming up next. I believe we're going to have a break. Oh, excuse me, we have a question here. Let's do questions, then we'll take a break. Yes, ma'am. Oh, they're not necessary. They're a treat. The question is, do I need worms to have a backyard compost? The answer is no. They will come. They can smell. They know where it is. No, they're not part of the composting. They're a treat. Okay. Okay, her question is she has access to a gerbil and the waste and the paper product that collects the mat that collects the waste. Can I use that? Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, I don't know which, I have chickens, so I'm biased, but I think gerbil is pretty darn good. Okay, now the idea is that any animal waste takes time because when it comes out, it's got ammonia in it, and that burns your roots. And time means 2 months, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, depending on how the composting is working, but it takes time. So you wouldn't say take the gerbil waste and put it around your plants. You kind of know that doesn't seem right. No, you put it in the compost. It's going to take 6 weeks in a perfect world to make compost. That's 6 weeks. And then you're going to maybe set it aside like I do because I'm not ready to use it today. So it takes another day, another week. By the time you put it on your plants, you're good. Yes, sir.
So I have a 3x3x3, and I have 3 of them together. And I just take it, I toss from one to the other. But I've never thought about putting dirt in. So it's full now. When I toss it to the next one, how much soil should I, or how much dirt should I be adding to it?
Okay, his question is he has 3 compost outside bins, one side by side. Okay, so it's time to move the one to the second bin. The question is, do I put dirt? What do I do different?
I never even thought about that.
Yes. Okay, the dirt is an activator. Okay, if you have sort of not as necessary as you think because you have dirt and compost in the pile 1 that you just moved. So you sort of have it. If you wanted to go faster, yes, you could add some soil. Okay, you could have 6 months ago, my finished compost pile, I saved it. That's going to be my future activator. And I might take a shovel full of that and throw it in. So you kind of keep it alive. It's not totally necessary, so you don't have to bother. Now, the practice of going from bin to bin to bin is kind of classic. However, depending on how strong you are and how much you want to work and the size of your stuff, you could take the bin number 1 and simply turn it. But I've got new stuff. Put it in bin number 2. Okay, so you're actually got a half a bin in bin 1, turn it. I don't want it bigger and heavier and hard work. I'm just going to keep turning it, but I've got garbage. So I'm going to put it in bin 2 and sort of start this whole lasagna, layer it, and start bin number 2. Okay, oh my gosh, I got more garbage. Bin number 3. But I'm turning bin 1 half, but now I've got half in the second one. I'll turn it. Kind of remember January, February, March. Now I'm going to start the next. Okay, what do I do now? I'm not done, and the first one's not done. Well, now I'm going to start to say which one is going to get topped off and kind of figure it out. Okay, if it's going too slowly, because it should actually be more of a miracle than you think. Okay, how to make it go faster? Okay, she said, I need 3 of this and 1 of that. So look to your browns and add to the pile number 1 that's cooking a little bit more brown and a little shredded green. And now you're getting real clever about the smaller the green, the faster it goes, the more brown it goes faster. And you're kind of coming up with a style and a routine. But the classic of going from one to the other, you say, what was that all about? So it's really about turning. And if you have a way of turning within the bin, go for it. And people have another turner, which is like a pipe that goes down in like a agitator in a barrel. So you're not turning the barrel over, but you're spinning the inside contents. And it's hard when you've got a big one. So go for half a barrel and just use a tool and get in there and fluff it around. It doesn't have to be real dramatic, but that has to move it. Okay, any other questions?